Yeah, maybe that's it.
We're gonna record me the piece of candy.
After two, that's what I put it early, I can see what's on.
Yeah, it should be.
You are.
Yes, he does. He is the bringing number. Yeah, we got one after.
Yep.
Except stragglers.
We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with introductions. I'm Jeremy Tanz, Senior Regional Planning Commission.
Alex McElroy, Central Staff.
Wayne Miles, Mayor Jackson.
Jim Roach, City of Jackson. Jeff Long, Southeast Missouri.
Drew Christian, CMO RPC.
Andy Meyer, ODOT.
Marla Mills, KOG Engineering, SEMPO staff. State Kinder, Mayor.
And on the line, we have Tom Caldwell. Cecile,
Cecily.
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 Cecily, I apologize. I'll get it right, Cecily.
Nope.
And Joe Killian, and joining us, if I can admit her, is Brittany O'Connor from ODOT.
All right. Welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and start with the adoption of the agenda.
I move we adopt the agenda.
Second.
The second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of March 15th.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion second. Is there any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes stand approved. I have no communication to share at this time, so this would be a time for public comments. I don't think there's anyone here for the general public, so we'll move on to new and unfinished business. Starting with the public hearing on the FY 2024 Unified Planning Work Program. We will go ahead and call for a motion to open the public hearing.
Move to open the public hearing for the Unified Planning Work Program.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing has commenced. Alex, do you have anything to,
No.
and since there's no one here from the general public, we will go ahead and accept the motion to close it.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Moving on to resolution number 2023-01, a resolution adopting the FY 2024 Unified Planning Work Program.
All right. This process started back in February with our planning committee, where we had developed that draft list, that one pager that we've shown at our meetings lately. Just as a reminder, some unique things about this fiscal year. The first is our Safe Streets and Roads for All project. That was the federal funds that we had received for our comprehensive safety action plan. It is a significantly large endeavor. It will be our financially largest planning project that SEMPO has undertaken since I've been affiliated with them. Second, our planning funds actually increased from the 2020 census and the bipartisan infrastructure law. We now receive about 25,000 additional each year in planning funds for our operations. Another thing is that MoDOT's carryover policy changed this year. It went from 5 years to 4 years. So we actually planned a little bit more financially than we typically do, just to realign ourselves with that carryover policy. And then finally, we are set to receive additional funds from IDOT this year due to their carryover policy changes and how they're approaching, addressing their fund balances. So we'll actually receive about 65,000 additional planning funds that we have planned in this fiscal year 2024 work plan. And we have dedicated the funds toward the SEMPO Regional Trail Connection Study. That's a plan that impacts our entire planning area. It also looks at our Illinois side of our MPA. So it made sense to attribute those funds for that planning initiative. Our TBC has had the opportunity to review it. It was released for public comment earlier this month. No comments were received, and it's now ready for consideration of the board.
With that, we have a resolution. Reading the resolution is, whereas the Board of Directors of the Southeast Metropolitan Planning Organization is the executive body of the Metropolitan Planning Organization designated by the Governor of the State of Missouri and the Governor of the State of Illinois for the Petro-Jackson urbanized area, and responsible for carrying out provisions of 23 USC 134-49, USC 5303-23, CFR 450.308, and 23 CFR 450.1314. And whereas the Southeast Metropolitan Planning Organization is charged with the preparation and adoption of an annual unified planning work program as specified in 23 CFR 450.308 as part of a continuous, cooperative, and comprehensive transportation planning process. And whereas the FY 2024 Unified Planning Work Program has been prepared in accordance with the federal regulations, and whereas the FY 24 Unified Planning Work Program has been presented to the public for review and comment, and whereas the Technical Planning Committee has complied, and reviewed the transportation projects identified within the FY 2024 Unified Planning Work Program to be presented to the Board of Directors for consideration of approval. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Southeast Metropolitan Planning Organization hereby adopts the FY 2024 Unified Planning Work Program as shown in the attached exhibit, which is incorporated herein by reference. With that, we would accept a motion to adopt the resolution.
Move to adopt the resolution 2023-01.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. We'll move on then to the MoDOT unfunded needs list.
Okay. I was hoping Michael Brandon will be here to help speak on behalf of this list. But we discussed this at our planning committee earlier this month. As folks are aware, there's been a lot of discussion about exit 93 and where it should end up on our prioritization list, and also what the scope of that project should be. Through the different iterations and discussions, MoDOT came forward with an option of rehabilitating the bridge, so much so that they think they could give it another 10 years of useful life. Window of time also allows us to reevaluate the project, prioritize it, and identify what the region's needs are. With that recommendation, MoDOT is saying or recommending to move tier 2 projects up to tier 1, place exit 93, which is currently a tier 1, into tier 2, so we can continue to reevaluate it. Tier 2 projects are the Shawnee Boulevard intersection, and then Route 25, the addition of shoulders. So those two would go to tier 1. We would move exit 93 to tier 2 and reevaluate the scope of prioritization of it going forward. The TPC, we did not have a quorum But I did share the recommendation with them. No one present took issue with it. They supported taking the recommendation to the board. MoDOT is hoping that we'll be able to make a motion and approve either that recommendation or some form of a tiered list. That way they can get it programmed with all of the different deadlines they have. Worst case scenario, Michael had indicated that we could push it to next month, but really preferred that it be approved this month if at all possible. With that, I'll open any questions folks have. We did talk about, because of the price tag on Route 25, you can see here on the 18.5 by 14 printout. We have a cost estimate of about 14 million for the shoulder edition of 25. But with new estimates on the one pager that you have here, this was provided to us by MoDOT. They have their initial estimates, and then they have new estimates based on inflation. So as you can see, Route 25 has a new estimate around 15 million for the additional shoulders. Some cost saving measures, because that would be a pretty large tier 1 project for the area, to be able to fit it within their funding buckets. We had come up with some scenarios to addressing 25. One of them is potentially phasing 25, somewhat similar to how we approached adding lanes on I-55, potentially breaking it into a 2-phase project with 10-foot wide shoulders from 61 down to Route K. Or we could consider reducing the shoulder width. Currently, we are proposing 10 feet. And discussing with MoDOT, they had said if that were reduced to about 6 feet shoulder width, we could reduce the project budget by about $5 million. I asked if there's any type of MoDOT standards for bike lanes, because that was one amenity we wanted to be able to provide for Route 25. And they had indicated that they really didn't have a concrete recommendation for bike lane width. They pointed to the Trans-America Trail that at some portions of the length of the trail has 0 shoulder width, and other locations that has 2 or 4 feet of shoulder width. So this would still allow for a 6-foot shoulder width above and beyond what some roadways are providing. But if there's a lot of commitment to the 10-foot width, most likely we would need to look at phasing the planning and construction of the addition of the shoulders. And this project would not include some of the other improvements that we had looked at, such as additional lighting, the charos for the bike ped lanes. And I think that's it. Yeah. So lighting and painting of the bike lanes would be part of the scope of this project for the amount of money that we're looking at.
Where, can you tell me exactly where the stretch is that you're referring to?
Yeah, so it would be
I'm not good with the numbers.
Jackson Boulevard 61 on the Jackson side, and then south on 25 to where we're looking at putting the roundabout at the intersection 25 and Route K.
In between there and there.
Yeah.
Has it been, I assume it's been determined that there's a real desire for.
It's been on our list for a while. It hasn't been a tiered project. This is the first time I believe it's been a tiered project, but it's been on our list for some time. Additional shoulders on that route.
Busy route, well, that's why I want to get in the roundabout thing.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking about the busyness of bikes. I mean,
Oh, I got that, the bike thing up here. That's-
Yeah,
I
and I
have
don't
no problem with
believe
the narrowing of that to get the public space on a $500. Most important thing, is shoulder. Number one, and just from the traffic standpoint, truck standpoint.
So you're saying you're favored the 6 foot wide?
I'd be okay with that. Yours is 10? Yeah.
I am too.
No, I haven't.
I mean, it's not, this isn't, our main bike discussions have been more about connecting Cape and Jackson to the north route than we have going south, that way, so.
6 foot seems adequate for bike lane anyway.
Yeah. Here's a bike, go ahead.
I think I can make it on 6 feet. Alex, you said that the estimate on this, on the smaller sheet was 15 million.
Yeah, it'll be once, it's the third one down. And you can see there, they have the original 13.7 million.
The 8.5 by 11 sheet, it's 14 million.
Correct. These are, that was an order number that had been put in there, and I'm not,
14 is the older number.
the new one's the 15.
It's the old number with 10 shoulders.
That'd be reduced by 500.
Yeah, so if we're okay with the 6 foot wide shoulders, the total project cost would be about, I think it's about 10.5 million.
Yeah, we do need a motion to approve the unfunded needs list with these recommended changes.
Okay. Any,
Alex, I just have a little question about the second one. Intersection improvements at Shawnee Boulevard. Where specifically is that?
So Shawnee Boulevard comes, it's at the very top of a hill. Shawnee Boulevard comes up at the very top of a hill. Right by an intersection. They have a subdivision on the other side. And a 4-way traffic light. That
Oh, in Jackson.
In Jackson.
Yeah,
in
okay,
Jackson.
got it. Sorry. Okay.
And it's, is it St. Francis? There's a hospital center right there at the corner, is that?
yeah, that's there, the orthopedic, the orthopedic.
Yeah, it's there, right there.
Yeah, it's not gonna work. Well, it's-
And that one, along with Donna Drive, have been on the needs list for a while. We did get Donna Drive into the STIP. So now we're looking at Shawnee Boulevard.
So just to reiterate, we would be looking for a motion to exchange the tier 1 and tier 2 projects. So the 2 tier 2s would become tier 1, tier 1 would become tier 2, and then make those modifications to the shoulders for Highway 25.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Stands as
Can you comment just a little bit about unfunded need list, what that, I know what it means, but from the standpoint of time, money, what thought, and it may be a little historical perspective, but how does that work?
I'd be happy to. I would defer to MoDOT though. If they've heard any other conversations about the thought process and guidance that you've given to other MPOs about the tiered list.
Well, I think first of all, the place to start is, and I don't mean to be flippant, but it is an unfunded needs list. You know, we struggle with other groups that once they prioritize or tiered their projects, they're like, now those are gonna roll into the STIP, right? It's like, well, you know, there's still a lot of things that can impact that. One of them is the availability of funding, our ability to dovetail prioritize projects with asset management needs that typically drive the vast majority of our funding at this point in time. So in our district, or really, I could just back up and say statewide, the bulk of our budget is driven by asset management, pavement rehabilitation, bridge replacement, or bridge rehabilitation. So anything that expands the system, we have a very limited ability to address those projects without significant participation by a local entity. And certainly we've seen that in the past with things like the 67 corridor expansion. 412, Duncan County putting $500,000 into an environmental study to try to advance 412. And that's pretty unusual for this region to see something like that, to try to advance the project. So for us, the way we look at it is the tier 1 projects are essentially the ones that are far enough along, well enough developed that they could be advanced into the program. We know enough about them. We have essentially what would be a programming estimate that has been completed. The tier 2 and tier 3 projects are generally things that we would look at as five years out or 10 years out, and certainly may not be as well developed or fleshed out in terms of really having a good feel for what they would consist of. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If that
So
makes
moving
sense.
to Pier 2 and to Pier 1. Doesn't sound like you would even have a chance to make it because you haven't done.
Well, it theoretically, the tier 1 projects, the way we may look at that is, okay, that's been identified as priority for our planning partner. That's obviously something that they have a strong feeling for. Would that be something that if it moved from tier 2 to a tier 1, would we want to program it for scoping? So, we have the ability to program projects just for scoping, which means we can charge engineering to them and do a little bit of research in from an environmental standpoint and design standpoint, and just start to plan, what would that look like? How, where would that fit in our program? What might that actually cost? So I think that's the thing you get moving from the tier 2 to a tier 1 is it would theoretically allow us to perhaps put that in for scoping and do a little bit more engineering and get ready to put that in the STIP if the funding does become available. A project like the 25 project, what might trigger that for us is if the pavement from, within the limits identified Jackson Boulevard to Dutchtown, for instance, if that had deteriorated to the point, that you may need to work on that, well, then adding the shoulders into that project, that might make a lot of sense, where we might be able to find that it has a benefit cost ratio greater than 1 when we look at the reduction in accidents associated with adding those shoulders. So, that's an instance where we may be able to advance a project, put it into a program, and perhaps that might be more practical than the exit 93 scenario. But that may be more of an editorial comment, and I apologize.
That helps. I just kind of want to understand. I didn't know if they automatically went up, that like Donna Drive has, and that's worked out well, but they don't all, and it depends on a lot of other factors.
Yeah.
But it gives you kind of a free priority list, I guess, for our.
Right. Well, it's a planning document. I mean, that's the best way to look at it is, we always look at things in terms of, what if scenarios, what if we just suddenly had more money and we knew what to do with it, what would we do with it? And it's great to have a feel and we recognize you all as local experts. So it's great to have that input.
Any other discussion? We'll go ahead and we'll move to the draft public transit human services transportation coordination plan.
We received a draft earlier this month from our partner and consultant team, KLG Engineering. We did provide the draft to our planning committee earlier this month. The plan benefited from a lot of grant support from social service agencies, transportation providers, and public transit riders in the community. Just as a quick recap of some of the outreach that we had conducted. On October 7th, Project Hope hosted a community meeting at the Osage Center from 10 to 3 p.m. where volunteers were able to interview 39 individuals. On October 22nd, a community discussion was held at the Shawnee Park Sports Center, where we had 54 citizens in attendance. It was actually standing room only for quite a while as we searched for chairs. We had 7 different facilitators there to help answer questions, along with local elected officials. On December 8th, in partnership with the United Way Transportation Coalition, there was a survey issued, both print and web-based, where we received 267 responses 216 of those responses were submitted via online, the 17 submitted by print. And then on March 8th, KLG had a meeting with the Jackson Ministerial Alliance at and with Wings, etc., where they provide outreach to the local pastors in the community. Just a quick update on the timeline. Our planning committee received a draft earlier this month on our TPC meeting in May, which will be May 3rd. They'll do a final review and then they'll release it for public comment. On our board meeting, May 17th, we will set a public hearing for June 21st. On June 7th, our TPC will do the final review and then they'll make a recommendation to the board. And then on the 21st of June, our board will hold a public hearing to consider the plan for approval. So right now, this is just information only. I provided the draft electronically. I did bring one print copy, but as I indicated in the email, we have several documents that's are almost 100 pages, so I couldn't print out versions for everybody unless they really want them. Then let me know and I'll print it out for you. But we're encouraging folks, if you do have comments or feedback, try to use the PDF and just put comments within the document, send them back to either Marla Mills or myself, and we will work to get those incorporated. That's all I have.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the draft 2024-2027 Transportation Improvement Program.
Okay, just like our transit plan, this was provided to our planning committee earlier this month. We're on a very similar timeline for adoption. The TIP does require a 25-day public comment period. So on May 3rd, our planning committee will release it for public comment. That public comment will be out pretty much the entire month of May. We'll then schedule a public hearing for the 21st and then have the board consider for adoption. And obviously on June 7th, our planning committee will do their final review and make a recommendation to the board. We are looking to approve this in June, so we do not have a lapse in our TIP plans. But we do know, and just prepare the board, that we will have amendments forthcoming based on additional MoDOT projects. So we'll approve the plans we have in place, knowing that there will be some projects yet that'll still be amended and incorporated into the plan.
So that draft, when you sent out the emails, that attested.
That one was attached as well. I do have a hard copy, I think 2 hard copies here in case anybody needs them. But similar to our transit plan, we're encouraging folks, if they do have comments, to issue them in the PDF if possible. If not, they can just handwrite them and provide them to me and we can work to incorporate them.
I've got just a general question regarding the Deerwood roundabout project that Jackson has with MoDOT and cost share project. It says in the tip that it's scheduled for construction FY this fiscal year 2024. Is that calendar year 24, mid 24 and mid 25?
Fiscal year 24 starts in July of 23.
And goes to the middle
20.
of. So 24 goes from 24 to 25.
24 goes from 23 to 24. Yeah, yes. We ought to just probably stick to calendar.
We're on the calendar year city.
Yeah.
So the construction for that roundabout is considered to be middle of 24 to middle of 25. If it says fiscal year 20.
It could be as early as July of 23. You could award theoretically, if you're ready to go, you can
Could
award.
we adjust that? Because with the Highway 61 project, we're not gonna do anything until that's over. Doesn't that go from 23 to 24? True.
Yeah, that's the reason
We can't be in fiscal,
Well, we could be, but
it'd be at the
at the very end.
yeah.
That would be a good one to talk to Chris about. And I assume you're still working with Chris Crocker on that in terms of the
Yes.
agreement.
Yeah.
What they do work,
That's who.
they're still working on there.
Okay.
I would just think that we certainly would do it.
That's right.
Any other questions or comments on the tip? Okay, that will close our new business. We'll move into member reports, starting with city picture.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know about a meeting I attended this morning in Charleston with yeah, sure some of you all are familiar with the Mississippi Ohio River Confluence Economic Alliance, which is getting serious. I guess they've been in existence for quite a while, but getting serious about putting a study together to look at extending 4 lanes of highway east from Paducah, and then where Barlow, Kentucky currently dips down, the state highway dips down to Wickliffe and then crosses the river into Caro. Of course, that bridge is slated for replacement. The premise is to look into replacing that bridge a bit farther north and running the 4 lane, running the 4 lane straight over, just where it would hook up with 57 around the exit 1 area, which is also where Illinois Highway 3 from Cape kind of hits. So it was really interesting. It was a 2-hour long conversation, just an initial deal here. Of course, brings up all sorts of interesting issues regarding that all that wetland, whatever else is in there. But they have a plan for various stakeholder groups and whatnot through this fall, and the hope is to basically adding, I guess, and I don't know, forgive me, east of Barlow, I don't know where the 4 lane stops on its way to Paducah, but basically extending, the goal would be to extend 4 lane, basically straight west, and then connect, put the new bridge in that area rather than where it is now in Caro. So bridge going over there, connecting around basically around that roughly where that current intersection is there. Yeah. So pretty interesting idea, and I guess MoDOT has indicated that the bridge south of Caro going from Missouri into Illinois will not be eventually replaced. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've the conversation with IDOT is, well, currently IDOT, they're the controlling agency on that structure. And I think they've got some repair work they're doing on it right now.
Yeah, they indicated that.
Downstream of that, what we talked about is at the border bridge meetings is commissioning and funding a end of life study for that structure.
Yeah, and so I think, well, the folks in Charleston are, of course, kind of I think the lead voices on the whole area there. Imagining just getting up on 57 and going up to that, perhaps that new area, being able to head straight east from there is kind of sounds like where things are leaning. But they're partnering with Stan Tech. I'm not familiar with that company as a consulting firm that's kind of putting this whole study together, and they're looking for a very comprehensive. They were asking Cape Girardeau and even folks on the Missouri side to add to give them some data just regarding traffic and populations and industries and all that. So Alex, you're one person. So reach out.
So you're saying Charleston is for or against moving it?
Charleston, I believe, is for
Okay.
moving it, knowing that the bridge closest to them right now is just south of Caro is eventually not going to be replaced. It's near and I think they indicated it's like a 90-year-old bridge at this point, and its lifespan is pretty short. Right? Is that correct? I don't need to. Yeah. So imagining what moving, looking very far forward, trying to imagine I think folks are realizing, okay, if you're going to replace the Caro Bridge heading west into Kentucky, let's do it
Okay.
Well, yeah,
Bottom line.
trying to make a little bit of a pitch there to extend the study to get some 4-lane straight, just keep going over, but, eventually, I think that would involve then, then talking later with IDOT about, again, with a whole other stuff, but anyway, that's kind of where they're looking right now, is connecting to I-57.
I think IDOT was one that originally for that to happen. That's not something new. That's.
No, it's not, this is not apparently brand new at all. What I think is brand new is putting some real action into getting a plan and a study done. I will say too, it was encouraging to see Congressman Smith, Senator Hawley, and Senator Schmidt's folks at the meeting.
I might be wrong, but I think the latest thing that I've seen for that bridge is that it's immediately north of the existing bridge. So I don't know if they're looking at different alternates or.
John Carroll going into Kentucky, Illinois, Kentucky Bridge.
Yes,
That's what I heard. Yes, that I think the original plan is to just do it right next to
yeah,
the existing, but this discussion is,
moves a significantly to the north.
yes,
That's interesting.
which I think is still, I think they said is still in Caro, or maybe the same county. I don't know. There were folks from Caro there who, and I guess because of bridge work happening now, they're all the traffic. There's one bridge I think that's getting work done. Is that the Mississippi Bridge?
That's the 6062 bridge.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of traffic going right through Caro right now. It's, and that they just can't. I don't know. So it was I think the purpose is to look at this as something that would, be a good 50-year plan. Whatever increments they look at, but anyway, just wanted to let you all know that there's a, it's us60connectivitystudy.com. So everybody's interested. us60connectivitystudy.com. Again, that's the company, the organization is MORCEA. Mississippi Ohio River Confluence Economic Alliance.
Mayor, what was the name of the consultant you mentioned earlier?
Stantec.
Thank you.
Anything else? We'll move to the subject.
Not too much, just for the one bridge construction we do have, is an asphalt plant. Opens up, we'll finish that up, it should be in the next month, maybe. Yeah, I guess we'll say that on Mary Street, we'll go from there. I guess next, biggest project will be a MoDOT project, the Highway 61 North and Humboldt Creek Bridge. We approved the MOU on Monday night, so that's all approved. My assumption is the next is the bid on MoDOT to bid that project. Hopefully mid-year. We did also Monday night have a Main Street corridor pedestrian study presented, which was a joint funded project from MoDOT or through MoDOT to the federal funds, but they took it from uptown, I guess actually the roundabout all the way to west to West Jackson Boulevard. So it was a good study. A lot of people did it. They've had some short-term recommendations and long-term recommendations that we'll be looking at going forward in part of our city planning process. But I think the next step was to take the draft report and review it with MoDOT, and I think get approvals and before we move to a final report. But I was pleased with what they did. They did, I think, some realistic things we could do faster, and then some longer things just depending on monies and so forth that we have available. But I think it would be good for uptown Jackson to follow a lot of our changes and some of our challenges that we have in uptown Jackson court. That's good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No,
Okay.
Mayor, I do have a question about that Mary Street project. And this is coming from the perspective of walking through the park on a regular basis with our dogs. So,
Okay.
the crosswalk on Mary Street was moved further away or a little bit further to the west. The bridge is still significantly higher than the street to the west. I guess I wonder about the sight distance there. You know, previously with the low water crossing, it was narrow, it was low. People had to yield to each other. There was probably an imposed reduction speed associated with that little water crossing. Now that it's 2 lanes wide from 61 all the way to where the crosswalk is located, I'm kind of worried about westbound traffic coming off that bridge, not seeing someone in that crosswalk, seeing me right now.
Me too.
I'm at the point I'm starting to move slower. So, but I just didn't know if you all thought about that or looked at that.
Yeah, we had somebody mention that.
We did. That was on the other side. Yeah. Oh, did you mention this side? It would be either side. Definitely down the street. Wait, what would you with traffic speed through that area was your challenge?
Transverse roads.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we do.
We're experiencing the conundrum we frequently have where we make a facility probably we make an improvement that arguably increases the operating speed and therefore might affect the pedestrian safety.
Yeah.
So
I think, we'll make notes and look at that and just come on the other side of Mary Street,
Fair points.
where he lives, Barry and Russell, is there's some challenge in what we could look at there. And, strips, are even making sure we've got, I don't know if those lighted signs work like we have on the trail on Main Street, when you look at the button and they flash, I don't know if those work or not. They don't seem to work on Main Street to me, but I don't know if that's.
I haven't had very good experiences getting people to actually stop on Main Street either.
Yeah, so that's, when I run through there, that's.
Gives them more of a target when they see that.
Let you know somebody's coming. I never stop, I never cross there. Okay, good, that's fair.
We'll move on to Cape Trans Authority.
I have nothing to report.
I think our next. Is Katrina still on? I saw her pop up earlier. Hey, report.
Yeah, there she is.
Hello. Long time no see, everybody. So we are moving pretty quickly on all the projects here at the airport. Taxiway Bravo is near completion. It is open now. We've got a few minor items left to finish, but it is open and able to be used by all of our pilots here at the airport. Last week, we held a groundbreaking for the new terminal and work has started. They've already broken up one of our taxi lane areas. So they're starting the dirt work now. We've got a T-hanger project that's out for bid. We have interviews scheduled for next week. And we're wrapping up a master plan with the airport. So that's what I've got going on right now.
Anything for the RBC?
Like Alex mentioned, we've got the updated tip coming out. There will be tip amendments for that almost as soon as it's adopted. I've actually got the revised projects and working on getting those put in, but we'll hold off on publishing them until the current changes are adopted. I guess I'll just quickly make a pitch for the RBC drone services. And now this morning flying City of Jackson, I was out Monday as well. Just doing photos and videos for the promo material of the city. Parks, and churches, schools, more parks. But we've got LiDAR and photogrammetry as well, thermal imaging. So, you guys need any kind of, really, if there's any kind of sensing to be done from a drone, we can probably do it. So, let us know.
Thank you. We'll move on to MoDOT. Andy, you start.
Sure. Mayor, you mentioned the Hubble Creek and Mary Street project that is still that's still scheduled for 11 in May. So we're pretty excited about that. I guess if I had an update beyond that, it would be that we're wrapping up the right-of-way acquisition along that corridor. And we were super excited that the agreement got approved. So making great progress there. Looking forward to that project starting. If any of you like to take 34 west, like say, west of Marble Hill, you might want to think about going down to 60 to head west for a while, because starting in May, Pace Construction will be working on a project on 34 west of Marble Hill. And we also have another portion of that route from 67 to Piedmont that is under construction. So if you like work zones, that's the way to go. If you don't, possibly drop down to 60 to head west. Route 72, we've talked previously about that work being that was rejected because of excessive bidding, and it has been rescheduled for a letting in October of this year. The Route 25, Route K roundabout, that was also that is scheduled currently for a October letting. As I think we talked previously, the delay there was associated with comments we received at the public meeting that led us to further examine access control and particularly the way drivers at the intersection were utilizing the turn lane on K. Frankly, they were trying to use it in both directions, like a two-way left turn lane, but it is most clearly not supposed to be used that way. So we were really worried about accidents that might be caused by that. But I think that's the neat thing about public meetings. Sometimes you get feedback you don't anticipate that leads to examination of problems that you just weren't aware of. And I think we'll have a better project because of that. So slight delay, but I think the outcome will be probably a better project. So and the other thing I want to make sure to always talk about is Chester is making progress. So if you were lucky enough and drove by there, you may have seen the design build entity. They started with drilling. So they've started additional subsurface investigation to prepare for their basically their peer designs. So they're starting that process, and we hope that as early as this fall, they will have some of the right of way acquired and be able to start clearing and construction. So next year will be very exciting if you're interested in being able to get to Illinois without going to what Mayor Kidder talked about earlier, the southern part of our area. Chris Crocker was unable to be here today. He's in mandatory safety training at Maryville today, so we're making sure Chris is safe. But he did have some things he wanted to share. There is a BRO call for projects that starts on the 1st of May. So May Day, if you've got anything you're interested in proposing for bridge replacements, there's also, we anticipate a second TAP call sometime this summer. Those dates haven't been nailed down yet, but we can anticipate that if you have a project you're interested in pursuing. In both of those, well, really in the TAP instance, if you have if you're looking at a trail project that is either on MoDOT right away or adjacent to us, tying into the intersection, anything like that, please make sure we know about it early so we can start talking about drafting a letter of consent to make sure that that's taken care of in a timely manner. And then, as I know you're all well aware of it, every once in a while, he makes me say it anyway, please make sure your LPA basic training is up to date. Frequently we'll have a local partner that their staff will go through that, and then they'll forget that it expires on a regular interval, and they may need to take it again. So maybe take a look at that, or if you've got any new staff that those classes are available online, if I remember correctly, and very informative. Really walk you through the EPG section 136 in detail. It's very stimulating. I believe that's all I have, and I'll ask Joe if he has anything.
The only thing that we have is we are currently working on the STIP, or really it's kind of a central office, and they're kind of going through looking for any changes or anything that needs to be done. We anticipate that early this, or I guess late this spring, as usual. And I think I've got the list of projects to Drew that he'll be using for that highly anticipated first TIP amendment as soon as the TIP gets approved. So I don't think I have anything else.
And Brittany, you're queued up there, so.
Hi, yeah, there's something I wanted to just clarify because I wasn't sure if I heard correctly. When you were talking about the draft tip, is that scheduled for board approval at the June meeting? So it'd be June 21st, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and just a little bit of background, I used to be the liaison for SEMPO, but we currently are down 2 staff members in my work group. So we had to shift some responsibilities around. So Mike Henderson has kind of been the liaison for SEMPO since the end of last year. But something I just wanted to point out for your consideration is we have a partnership agreement with our Federal Highway Missouri Division, which typically allows them 2 weeks for approvals, which I know you mentioned getting the TIP approved at the board meeting so that there wouldn't be a lapse in the TIP since it expires in June. But it needs to have that 1 dot approval on it as well, or it will lapse. So not only board approval, but the 1 dot approval. So with the June 21st timeframe, it doesn't give our federal partners a lot of time for that approval. I see that Cecily is on the call. She might be able to speak to that a little bit more, but just wanted to point out there with the current timeline, there could be a risk that it wouldn't get 1 dot approval prior to June 30th. But as if, you know, we can request a quick turnaround on that and we are able to get that, you know, we can certainly try to do that. So that's all I wanted to point out.
And thank you for that, Brittany, because that was going to be my comment. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, Cecily, do you have anything else you need to add since just go to you next?
No, just reiterating everything that Brittany said. And I look forward to meeting you all and working with you closely. I am trying to get a little bit caught up on the things that you all currently have under development and are about to adopt. So just probably expect some emails from me, just checking in, asking a couple of questions just to get myself acclimated, but it's very nice to meet you. And I look forward to coming out soon.
Hey, Cecily, this is Brittany. Have you received a copy of the draft tip to review? Because that usually makes the approval process quicker if you guys have had a chance to review it.
I've just downloaded it from the agenda items they had available. And so
Okay,
I'm going to work to
perfect.
review it so that we're not getting in the way of them lapsing.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to Ida. Tom?
Only one item, I guess. We were contacted, Alex and Ryan and myself, by, and I don't know if I'll pronounce it correctly, but is it Minot, North Dakota? A community that is, with the last census, their area community is now designated urbanized area, and they've asked Cape Girardeau to maybe assist in their new development of the MPO, and we're having a meeting next week that I don't know if Alex and Ryan are going to participate, but it's kind of interesting. They're looking for guidance from Cape in things that they would suggest for their new MPO. So, but other than that, I don't have anything else.
Thank you, Tom. We'll go ahead, we'll move to staff report.
The only additional thing I have is I've been working with our FHWA Federal Highway representatives on our Safe Streets and Roads for All grants agreement. The last draft I submitted to them, our Federal Highway reps sent it on to their office acquisition staff. Maybe Cecily can tell us if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's advancing. So once approved, I'll have a agreement for consideration in the near future. That's all I have.
Okay. Does anyone have any other business or communications they want to share? Hearing none, we'll go for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion second, all in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Very classy. Yeah, I thought so. See you later.
Yes. Hey, Jen.
That's what you say, 5 lots. That'd be good too.
I think that's what it is.
I'll get it off of the.
It's from July of this year, June of next year.
It's this year. Oh.
And it kind of said, you know, that's what I'm maybe I'll. Yeah.
Summer. It's gonna fall right in, that's right behind. It might look flat at the beginning, it should be elevated. Yeah. It should just kind of fall, it's right after the other.
Okay.
I was there.
I had to think about that.
They did a nice job.
Yeah, it's the first 5 years of my career that was.
Southeast Missouri.
It's like first time.
Yeah.
I think the fact that the area.
Yeah.
From.
That
was.
So then the other thing that usually causes back end to explode is our financial services people that are trying to make legislative requests for 2 years ago. So they're always looking at, you know, whatever they're putting into the budget is actually going to hit the following year, not the. And it's like, I'm sorry, I got to stop. You know, they've got to have some kind of wheel. They spin it. Yeah. You know, that was, that's always fun. I hate to see Jeff go. Jeff Rickle, our life director.
Yeah, I know.
I've only been on the board for a couple of years, but that's really been.
Kind of crazy.
It's super easy because he just does such a great job. Hoping that he's really in on this.
And actually, there was quite a bit about. All of this.
He's retiring.
Pointed out. Very.
Yeah, no, I'm only gonna be retired for 10 days. So, yeah, I'm gonna probably, I've been talking to a number of consultants, it's just a matter of time that I've told them.
And so that's what they were
Within
employing
September.
all of us.
Yeah, I'll basically 51.
Count,
So
and
I can't, let's be able to do that and still have,
industry.
61. Yeah, well, that's the neat thing about government employment, defined pension. It's, really want to take advantage of that, can. It's a great place to work.
Kind of got in myself.
Very thankful.
You see, just the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why? Kara.
Folks I've talked to, that's what they always say is, it's the people that's not the organization or working with people. So those relationships,
Three different things.
but that's the neat thing about going to consulting. I'll still see them. We'll still.
All that.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Consultant now.
Yeah, well, it was a public meeting for the roundabout. He was telling everybody what it had. It was like a party,
Yeah.
I told him, you should have brought a cake. He said.
At least.
Well, Angela's at the university and she's about 5 years behind me. Oh. So she's like, well, you're not gonna stop working, right? I'm like, well, we got to put your college. That's where I stop.
We have obligations.
Nobody thought that.
I also talking.
There's no-
Absolutely.
I'm sure somebody will, but.
I always tell people that, I'm sorry, it's.
That's not working out.
Go a little far.
Hey, hey. How are you?
Brother, all right.
Hey.
I'm sure someone over there was driving around there and explode that or light or something.
So anyway, it was an interesting, I think they were anticipating the meeting only taking an hour, less than 2 hours. And it's just the first, so I think,
All right, is everybody on?
through
Is everybody on?
spring and summer, they're gonna talk to.
Right.
Reach
Well,
out.
okay. You think three, and then I just need someone
Reach out to
to
each city.
Um,
In the
So
fall,
I finally, and actually just got the answer this morning from Sunshine Sports.
And then.
So in reference to March Nelson, I followed up with the whole, well, I not got an answer.
No, it was,
Yet. Surprisingly, it does.
Oh, okay.
Previously, when I reached out, you know, the response, right?
Is that a consulting firm or?
Yeah, it
Engineer, yes, yeah, that's who's, that's.
So I need to try and call them again,
Right.
but Willow
In
Springs,
conjunction.
James already worked with
This,
her,
this.
and I might,
Let's see.
well, I'll just direct the deal on that. What, guys,
I guess
what
they're
Diana
interested in
said was, that she would take on these businesses and basically do a 1 to 2 hour call with them for.
They talk about at all.
I don't, and I asked her
Like
if that.
the routes that they're taking, the new road connecting the bridge. It's right
I
there,
mean, it would be
like,
like a
like,
final report that
Yes.
said, here's what we
Yes,
talked about.
they mentioned, they brought up a map of that.
The
of that
resources
whole
that
thing.
we discussed, and she forwarded any kind of resources that she needed. Wildlife, that we could, I might,
They're
do anything for anybody else.
And
Do more, I might talk to her, she already had an each one that I'm saying,
something.
just super.
Oh, yeah.
Steps, yeah, she was super, that's what they're coming to. So, but, Sunshine Sports, Becky,
The Charleston City.
she wanted to get.
Capacity to, yeah, so they would say address that.
She would get what she really needed out of just a, 1 to 2 hour phone call.
Yeah, I remember.
And from her, or $230
Takeout.
yeah, $230.
There's also a public hunting space.
Is what she would
Yeah.
prefer.
So you take out
I mean, she.
1 acre of
yeah,
public hunting.
she got the perception out of it, but she didn't get any final report still. I mean, the last time I talked to Steve, he said he forwarded her that final report, but he still hasn't done it.
briefly mentioned,
So-
so just.
And then,
We were all like, "Ew." Fun, yeah,
they would agree that,
so,
yeah, Steve had said, well, you know, that the businesses didn't follow up, you know, basically, but only because the way that they.
throw in a four-lane connection, you know, right up to our bridge.
So.
Yeah, that would help. So,
here.
yeah, yeah.
Funded
Yeah.
that he's sunshine.
No, it sounds like that would have to.
Okay, I'll do,
At least though.
yeah, I just wanted to double check. Yeah, just wanted to double check. And then,
Yeah.
when I talked to Steve, so I guess here's where I need some direction. There's direction and, when I know that Karen, you know,
Wind
our
through.
agreement calls for final
That's all.
product. Their argument.
I don't think we're ever meant to be patched together.
I
to
would
get
say
the way
argument
you're
is,
going.
because they've made an argument.
So it was
Their
interesting.
Statement
We'll
has
see.
been that basically, you
But
know,
we kind of
lack
included
of response from the client is why they just concluded.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Which
now,
now, you know, that's
Oh,
because
good,
of
yeah.
the way that they initially communicated it, and the lack of time they
Big time.
gave the
senators and
clients
congressmen
to
or senate.
Yeah.
In the meeting.
Kyle's not full.
Yeah.
My question is, I'm a little shocked on Sunshine Sports, they basically changed the format
So,
because
um,
Steve thinks that they provide
I don't know if they're
service because he went there, he produced a document, even though he never gave it to her.
Yeah, I came from there.
And I'm not paid to give this invoice and I've not gotten back to Steve. I didn't do that about that.
so.
They,
But I'll,
they were gonna charge us about $650 for Willow Springs, you know, that piece, and I didn't tell that, of course, their comments was, they don't charge us because I really feel like they didn't know. She said, I did talk to them, you know, once or twice.
Yeah. we can
But they,
a lot of traffic counts.
And then
Road that we don't have.
the palms, I don't really know what they did.
That would be great for I-25 Highway
They,
74.
about,
We could work remote out.
their charge was about 2/3.
Great,
of what
okay. Thank you.
They had allotted. So their, you know, their charge is, I guess they're saying that they basically did 2/3 of the work, basically. It's like $2,400. I just need to know, and then the other one is Nelly Sweet Shop, one I'm really shocked about because that's